Oh my goodness. How's everybody doing? Thank you for tuning into The Open Podcast here with my best friend Forrest Bob. And we have a very special guest. Forrest, tell him who he is.
We are here with the great Dr. Ben Sawyer.
Everybody, give it up for Dr. Ben Sawyer.
Oh my goodness. So real quick, we're doing a late night pod. Give it up for our host, Aiden. He's sweating like
host.
a pig over there.
He's doing
been
stuff.
running around like a maniac.
He's doing stuff.
It's the middle of the night right now. He's been doing so much stuff.
And you have a flight in the morning, so give it up for him for being here.
I don't have a flight. I'm driving.
Christ. To L.A.?
Yeah.
The fuck? You're driving to L.A.?
Yeah.
And you're just nonchalant about it.
I've done it a bunch of times. I do it like every summer.
So what is that? Where are you stopping? How many stops is that?
So the key, basically, it's really easy. You just, if you want to go to L.A. from here, you just go get on 40 and you just go west. And that takes you like to Barstow, which is like really close. So it's just 40 if you want it to be. But the trick to driving across the country is to always find where the casinos are, because the hotel rooms are cheap and they're really nice.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah, because they want you to get there and gamble, right?
Huh.
So you can get like a super nice hotel at these like new casinos that are out there for like $120 with your family, and your kid can go to the pool, and then you can go lose $200.
That's what I say. And then you can fight with your wife and
then that
lose all the money.
becomes an expensive hotel.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys aren't married. You could fight with your wife at any hotel, right?
I guess you're right. Yeah,
You know
it'd be a
what I'm saying?
Motel 6.
It's just going to be something else.
An
you know what I'm
Uber.
saying?
Yeah, it could be anywhere.
Yeah, you can. It's a sport. So,
Oh, my God.
you might as well do it in a place with like nice bedding,
That's very true.
you know?
I like to scream in a high thread count.
Yeah.
Also, if you go out and lose a bunch of money, you just don't get back till real late when your kid's really asleep. So, he doesn't have to see it.
I only like to hit my wife around goose down pillows.
Yeah.
That's my standard.
I like to get divorced on silk.
Yes,
You
exactly.
can't even almost smother somebody with those cheap hotel pillows.
Yeah, that's
you know what I'm
true.
saying? They're just like so.
They're like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Like, breathe right through them. Like,
Yeah.
I could only smack my wife over a Michelin star restaurant.
My
That's
ex
it.
was way better at strangling me.
Yeah,
She was,
well, she
right.
wasn't right?
In those nice casinos, man. That's what I'm saying. Come back with some chips, shove them in her mouth.
Oh, gee.
That's why
Put
I
him
go,
in a sock
Hey,
and beat her with it.
It's the open hours after dark, man. We're getting freaky.
I mean, hey, look, if anybody does want $50, because that's really all I'm playing with, chips in their mouth, please contact the show.
We'll talk after.
I would. Yeah, if you want to put those in my mouth, if I can keep them, that'd be great.
Is that a hidden talent? Yeah, you just keep it?
Look, you can just, if it's $50 chips, I'll let you put as many until they don't fit anymore. All right, that'll be at least $300.
That's not a bad deal.
You got to come to me.
300?
I'll
I
go to
think
you
you
with
could-
$100 chips.
You're underselling yourself. You could fit at least 10 in there.
Thanks, dude.
Either way, you fucking disgusting freaks.
He could put 2 in there. Yeah, there's a reason we brought you
There's
here.
a reason,
and the reason is you're a Russian spy.
No.
That is the reason.
I'm not a Russian. Could I, before we move on to talk about my Russian espionage,
Yes.
could I just say, please, if you're watching this and you know my wife, don't tell her any of these things. She will beat me. Anyway, so
Don't say nothing.
Here, this is the part you can listen to. Ben is a great comedian.
Yes.
He runs a great show. Me and Hunter have done
Yep.
many times. Perfect timing. And
Perfect
Yazoo.
timing. Shut
He
up.
also is a doctor of history.
A history doctor.
And we're here to talk about Russian history because he used to live there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lived there. That's where I met my wife, actually.
Okay, so give us the rundown.
The
How old are you when you moved there? Why'd you move there? What was the interest?
How'd you meet your wife?
How'd you meet your wife? We'll go.
Well, it's funny because I didn't really like start off on some trajectory to do this. I'm like I'm like a redneck kid from a small town in North Carolina, but I kind of gradually got there, and then I built houses for a long time. So
Contractor?
carpenter,
Okay.
renovation carpenter.
Okay.
Right. So you
well,
were
that's
actually
what
building the house.
Yeah, that's what I eventually was. At first start off, they're just like, "Hey, college boy," and they just give you stuff to carry.
Dude, so manly carpenter history guy.
Oh, yeah.
I'm getting wet over here.
You smell like leather.
Hell yeah. Well, no, it was the best part about that was like I was in college. I was like doing it to pay for everything, and just to be have aspirations and dreams. And some dude who only drinks Mountain Dew is like, "Hey, college boy. Hey, college boy, you cut this board wrong. Oh, college boy, I guess they don't teach you how to cut boards in college, do they?" And you're just like, they don't.
It's an origin story.
They don't
right
teach
there.
you. That's not at all what we do
Yeah.
in college.
You taught me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm learning right
So,
now. I'm getting yelled at
You
learning.
told me not to learn geometry because that was from the devil.
Yes.
Mama said.
Mama said math is gay.
Yeah.
That was one of the most
She
fun
was
parts about being a carpenter was knowing how to use a speed square, like get angles
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything, and then doing it in front of somebody
Learn how to level.
who literally the guy only drank Mountain Dew. This was one guy I worked with. He wouldn't drink water. He would be like, it would be 90 degrees, and he would be like, "I'm out of Mountain Dew. Got to go to the store. I'm thirsty." And you'd be like, "Well, there's water," and he's like, "Nah."
Libby, we had Libby on, and she told us she does not drink water
at all, ever.
She said it's just Diet Coke.
And she had like a fountain. She's like the fountain Diet Coke, which the fountain sodas are the best. I mean,
yeah, but she's like, no, I just drink Sonic Diet Coke.
How old is she?
I don't know,
50 something.
We're not pigs. We didn't ask her age.
Look,
babe.
I'm not
But
that
we
kind
did
of
ask her
doctor.
her weight.
We did. We did ask. Yeah.
Let me tell you something
We
about
are
her.
friends.
All right, I'm not that kind of doctor, but her urethra is probably that big around from all of the kidney stones that are just firing through her system all the time for that Diet Coke. I don't drink water. Really? You're going to need something to put the pressure behind. That glacial gemstone
sugar.
that's coming out. Yeah.
Oh, I've never had one. Knock on wood. And I mean,
I'm not a soda guy, so I like a DC from time to time, but not
Yeah.
very, I mean, one every few weeks.
by the way, a Big Mac or a Steak and Shake, I'll have a Coke with that.
Yeah.
But that's a once every that's a twice, 2 times a year, 3
Yeah.
times a year thing.
Yeah, I drink Red Bull. I can't drink coffee. Coffee
I've-
makes me jittery, so I drink Red Bull. Anyway.
Really? More than Red Bull?
I know that's what everyone says. I don't understand it because I'm not a real doctor. I just know it works.
That's
But
true.
wait, you're carpentering, you're doing
So
shit.
carpentering, yeah. Back to this.
Sorry.
So I was building houses, and I just gradually, I took some time off after I finished my undergrad. Like
and this
my
is
bachelor's
in the
degree.
States.
Yeah, and this was in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
Then I went and got my master's degree and thought I wanted to do Latin American history. And then I just gradually was like attracted to Russian history. And then I took another year off and like it was up in Boone, North Carolina, and just like built a log cabin with a guy.
Boone, North Carolina. Oh.
And just did that for a year and applied to grad schools and ended up going to Michigan State. And so I actually like didn't plan for Russia to be my major like focus.
Okay.
I was doing like U.S. Russian stuff because my Russian language wasn't that good. But you got to have good language if you're going to study a history of a place. So 2009, I went for like a month, and at
To
that point-
Moscow or
yeah, to Moscow.
right.
And then I went back in 2010 on a 3-month grant. My wife was on a Fulbright grant, which is a year. We met there. I came back to the U.S. We liked each other, so we like stayed together. We like met halfway in Ireland, which is kind of an interesting thing to do.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then
Crazy for that to be the
make-
halfway point.
yeah, it is.
Let's say that's nuts.
Yeah, no, it's a cool halfway point. I mean, when I was a kid and my parents were divorced, my dad lived in Charlotte, my mom lived in Mount Pleasant. They would meet in Harrisburg, North Carolina. Dublin's way cooler.
I'd
But
say.
I've heard.
so yeah, and then I ended up going back. So I was there 2010 for like 3 months. Went back and taught a semester at Michigan State, and by I got there like right when the class began.
And how old are you at
Wrapped it
this
up.
point?
See, this was 2010, so I was like 32.
Okay.
31, 32.
Okay.
And so then I went back for a year. I got a Fulbright grant, so I went back for a year, and then she went back to UCLA, and then we ended up, coming together in California, and then moving out here shortly thereafter. But that's the time that I spent there. I was basically my life was there from like the middle of 2010 to the middle of 2012, although I had been there before.
Okay. So can we get the story of you at the bar with the Russians? And
Oh, yeah.
Can you just take that from top to bottom?
Yes, absolutely. This is
My favorite.
like a surreal story,
You
right?
Yeah,
told
and
us this at
before-
Bowery Vault like
Yeah.
3 years ago.
And before you tell the story, we're going to get to this later, but kind of the state of Russia at
this
the
point,
time.
okay.
Like
At this point,
danger level, how much is the mob running stuff? How much is it like, because this is before, obviously, they're always in some type of turmoil, but anything intense with Ukraine.
all right. Well, no, nothing. I mean, nobody would have suspected this at this point. So here's the state of affairs, and this is like the weird thing about Putin, right? Is Putin's always been a monster, but if Putin had left office, so he comes in power in like New Year's Eve 2001, like in 2001, like he's there, and he was supposed to leave office in 2000 and I think it was 2008.
Yeah.
Was when he was supposed to leave. If he would have left at that point, if you look at where Russia was when he took over, like, I mean, the nation's credit rating was like borderline F. Like,
I was gonna say it was bad, right?
they had just gone through a massive currency crisis. Like, people were, well, my wife first went there in 2000, and she was in St. Petersburg. And, like, literally, you would go down and buy things with, like, kopecks, which are like if a penny had a penny.
Shekels.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, people who would give you sticks from a matchbook as change because there was just not currency.
So they're barter trading.
Yeah, they're in the 2000, right, when this guy takes over.
Jesus.
So, so by the time he left, first of all, the corruption level, like it was open corruption, it was Wild West shit.
Yeah.
He's
Like,
told me something about like the mafia and shit.
yes,
Yeah.
oh yeah. My wife used to tutor in English, the children of the mafia who they paid insane amounts because she was a native English speaker. My fact, you know Klitschko?
Yeah.
She
The boxer.
Yeah, she
Road to
actually
Klitschko.
worked for him for a little bit.
That's crazy.
What?
In
That's
California. My wife's done cool things.
We could have her
Badass.
on.
I was about to say.
Yeah,
That's
because it
badass.
was like their parent, like her mother. One of whichever one's the mayor of Kiev right now.
I know what you're talking about.
Kiev. So like,
That's awesome.
Yeah, the mother
That's one of
went
my
to
favorite
Germany.
documentaries, by the way, is Anthony Joshua fighting Klitschko. It's called Road to Klitschko.
oh really?
It's very good.
They're fascinating, man.
Yeah.
They're also like geniuses. Anyway, so back to it. So like, if you look at what happens while he's the president, and again, this is not to absolve the guy, right? Like,
Right.
like everybody wants to just be like good or bad. But as Arch Getty, who's a great historian, he just passed away. My
R.I.P.
wife's advisor said, like, if you fought cancer the way that Americans deal with Russia, like, you would get nothing done because you'd just be like, okay, what's happening here? And they'd be like, cancer's bad. And you're like, okay, but like, what? How does it work? Like, oh, how dare you ask how it works? Like, it's bad. Like, don't even look into it. Like, it's awful.
Yeah. Don't look at it.
It's just like everyone would die from cancer, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
not a creative way to look at it, right? So none of this is to absolve Putin. I think the man's a monster. And he's gone on a very interesting route since like, in the last like 4 or 5 years. But if you look at what happened, like number one, like the open like mafia power, like it goes away. There's a rise of a middle class, right? Like there's stability in a way that there hadn't been. The country is like, its credit rating goes up. It can borrow money on the world. Like the ruble becomes more valuable. Like people, like more Russians are able to like regular Russians are able to do things. Now there's always a housing crisis in Russia just because of the way the system works. But if he would have left and he would have just checked out after his like second 4-year term, everyone would have been blown away by how much he had done. He would have been considered probably one of like modern history's great reformers.
Huh.
Now, again, this is not to say that the guy didn't do horrible things. He fucking murdered. He murdered journalists, right? Like he went after the opposition and everything. It's simply to say, like, from an average Russian's perspective, like their life was improved during this era, and it's not all it's not all him, right? It's other conditions. But what ends up happening is, everyone says, well, he's gonna stay in office. He's gonna change the Constitution. He's like, no, I'm not. And so all that happens is after his second term, he doesn't run. He says, I'm even going to nominate Dmitry Medvedev, this guy who's not even in my party. And he basically goes, this is the guy, and they all vote for him. But immediately Medvedev shifts a bunch of power into the office of the prime minister and makes Putin the prime minister, right?
Yeah.
So he probably knew that was going to happen?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And then after 4 years there, the Russian Constitution, there is one.
Yes.
There's one here too. Just remember that they're only as powerful as their enforcement. So it doesn't say that you can only serve 2 terms. It says you can only serve 2 consecutive terms, and if you take a time off, then you can come back. So of course, when I was there in 2012, it's like when he comes back and runs for president again, and it's like clear he's going to come in. And now he's changed all the terms. Like they have done what he said he would do the first time.
Right.
So all that's to say is, like, when I was there, like 2009, 2010, of course there's the political corruption. I mean, absolutely, and there's economic corruption. It's awful there, but it wasn't like it is now. Although Moscow was always a city, like if you were an American and you didn't speak any Russian and you wanted to go to Russia, it's like go to St. Petersburg, right? It's right there on the, it's right there on the, the Gulf of Helsinki, like it's the Gulf of Finland. It's right there by all these European countries. It's got more of that influence. More people there speak English. All of this. Moscow, even then, it was clearly, it was a global city. It was one of the most. It and Tokyo would go back and forth for being the most expensive city to live in the world.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Oh, it was insane.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, no.
I always imagined Russia as cheap. I have nothing about it. Just seems so miserable. Where I go, it's got to be cheap to be in negative 20 degrees.
Well, all right. Well, this is the thing people don't know is like, so Moscow it's way far north, right? You don't.
Yeah.
And St. Petersburg has the White Nights,
Right.
but Moscow is like it gets cold in the winter. But during the summertime, the sun stays up until like midnight and comes back up at like 4 a.m. and it's very sweltering.
That's
like,
crazy.
Yeah.
Stays sunny till midnight?
Yeah.
Are you losing your mind?
I was about to say.
Yeah. Well, you lose your mind if you're like me and my wife at the time, or my wife now, who's my girlfriend at the time, where you can only afford, because it's so expensive, you can only afford to rent a cheap place with no air conditioning.
Oh, God.
That's awful. I would sleep with like frozen vegetables in the bed. Like, I'm not getting put back in the freezer in the morning. But yeah, so it was actually, dude, I love living in Moscow. I never wanted to stay there. Like, you know, when you travel to another place, a lot of times you learn to love the place you're from even more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not, you know, Americans would be like, "This is the greatest country on earth," and I'm always like, "How many have you been to?" And they're like, "Just one." It's like, okay, well, I can say like I went abroad and I came back here and just it made me love the way we do things here. Not because it's better, because it's like this is the place for me. Even the South, like that's my place, right?
Yeah.
So it was great living there, man. I had a blast. It was nuts. And so it was, you know, it would be harder if I didn't speak the language, but like I had studied the language and you just live your life in the language. So even though my Russian was never like, people are like, "You fluent?" And I'm like, "That's a big word." No, but I can hang. I could get around. I could ask people directions and like have conversations with people. But like you know, like you might a toddler probably, but like I could get things done.
How do you say prostitute in Russian?
Prostitute, I would imagine.
Okay. You just throw a little.
Oh, well, Russian's
Yeah,
easy as fuck. You just got to do an accent.
Well, it's a lot of them, yeah.
I think everybody knows Russian.
Yeah, because Russian freaks me out because it's like all these squares and U's and weird checks.
You
and,
went, how do you say water bottle? Water bottle.
Water bottle.
It's a Vodnaya Botilka.
Okay.
But look, let me be clear. My Russian is terrible. I haven't, like, since I've come back in 2012.
Sounded good to me.
The times that I've spoken Russian have been
I
great.
understood it.
The last time I actually worked on Russian was I was cast in at the beginning of 2020 to host a travel documentary that was going to go all across, like from Moscow down through southern Russia and like tell the story of the American Relief Administration during the Russian Revolution. And I got cast to do it, so I had to do a read in Russian, and it was going to be all in Russian. And I like really put time into it. And if you may notice, the year was 2020, and I got shut down. So
Yeah.
I didn't get to do
So
that.
it didn't happen.
Yeah.
I need the Russian bar story
Yeah.
Okay. So here we go.
I
All
need
right.
it.
So
because it's incredible. Aiden, you're going to love it. I'll tell you right now.
let me fill the gaps here. Okay. So
I'm doing
So
stuff.
I go like 15 years ago, I was this guy who was like on a Fulbright grant, like doing research in Russia, like every day I'd get up and work in the archives, right? And it's like now we're talking, and we know each other because I'm a comic, right? I'm still mostly a professor, but like, you know, I do this. This is kind of what I've been doing for the last few months.
Right.
Pretty much just this. I love it. So here's how that happened. So I was living in Moscow, and I met a guy named Rafe Larson. And you got to remember, I'm from a small town, and even the fact that I imagine that I could get a PhD is bonkers. Still to me, because it's like, who does that? I didn't know what graduate school was until right when I was graduating. I didn't know how you got to be a professor.
That's crazy.
Literally didn't. Met a guy who was in a class 2 years earlier, and I was like, "I thought you graduated." He's like, "Yeah, I'm in graduate school," and I was like, "What's that?" And like he explained it to me. I was like 22.
It's like a normal thing.
I mean, I just didn't know. I guess you get. I don't know where you got a PhD.
Right.
Like I didn't know how that worked.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was in Russia, and a friend of mine, Katie Holt, who was also studying Soviet history there, her husband came to visit, and I just met him. We went to a soccer match, and he goes, I go, "What do you do?" He goes, "I'm a novelist." And I went, "What?" I still remember being like, you can. I met somebody who's a novelist, and he lived in New York City, right? And of course, I'm naive at the time. I didn't even realize that like probably 40% of people in New York City would be like, "I'm a novelist," right?
I'm a novelist.
But he's a real novelist, like sold his first book for a couple million. Like he's a legit novelist. Like they made a movie out of one of his, like he's great, right?
Yeah.
He's a legit, yeah.
So like, but it just opened my mind to the fact that I could do it. And here's like a thing. If you go into like academia, and especially where you're like rolling with these people, you're in a Fulbright grant, you're rolling with like, you know, diplomats and stuff like that, and like all these
Legit motherfuckers.
all these, well, you know, these people who do this thing, nobody sounds like me. Not because they're not from the South, but because most people in that world seem to have made a conscious decision to drop any Southern accent they have. And I just never did it, right? Like, it never made sense to me. It was like, this is how I talk. And it's a novelty in that world.
She's the way I talk.
So
It's like
it was
House of Cards.
Dude, it was this moment where America was having this, like, love affair with, like, the South. And, like, ooh, wow. It's like seeing me get a PhD was like seeing a horse drive a car. You know what I'm saying? They were just like, whoa.
I'd pay to see that, son.
Yeah, so I started telling stories, and people loved them, and I love sitcoms. Like I love sitcoms, and so I decide, you know what, I'm gonna get into comedy. I'm gonna write sitcoms, and I was reading all these books about how to do it, and that's how I started stand up, because I read 3 different books, and they were all different, but all of them said you just try stand up comedy. So my whole idea was like, I'll do stand up for a year, like all the books said, to try it, to learn punch and brevity and voice and all that stuff. And obviously, you guys have never seen my sitcom because it never got made, but I just love stand-up comedy. So what this meant was, every day I would go, I would usually get up early, go to this archive, work in these documents from the early Soviet era, like all day, just like stacks of documents, digging through, trying to answer my questions. It was awesome. And then the archive would close. Like I'd work there for like 8 hours or something like that. And then I would go over a lot of days over to the Leninka, which is like their Library of Congress, because they have all these old books and publications you can get in, right? And I'd like look in some older books that you just couldn't get in other libraries.
Okay.
And then just because you get in that work mindset where you can't shut down. So some days I would do that for I'd be like 8 hours in the archive, then go spend 3 hours in the Leninka till it closed. And then I found this really cool bar around the corner, and it was Bochka? I can't remember what it was called, but it was just a beer bar.
That sounds cool.
Which, dude, beer bars didn't exist in Moscow, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was just
It's all vodka.
and it was these.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. So that's not a big thing there, like beer?
People do drink beer there, right?
Okay.
Like they do. They drink.
Where do they import it from? Is it Germany? I'm not assuming,
You
right?
want to get into that?
No, not too much.
No.
Well, now they started importing it, but the thing was that nobody would invest heavily in Russia to make their own facilities because
That's
Russia
what I was
too
wondering.
unstable. So
Right.
what you ended up drinking was called whatever beer it would be called, but it was all made in the same Russian factory, and it all tasted like trash. It didn't matter if you got a Heineken or Miller Lite or any of these beers. They were
Easy
all
slang
because
for
it was like contract licensing. If you want to make money off of a country, but you don't want to take the risk of investing heavily in capital and production, what you do is you license out the right to produce your thing to that country. So you make less money off of it, but no one's going to shut down your factory.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what was going on at the time, and it was all terrible.
Okay.
So,
I didn't
but
know.
this place had this kind of beer. I guess it was like a small batch beer or something like that, which was new at the time, and it was these young guys who would be playing chess and hanging out. So what I would do is I'd get through with that. And then I started going over to this bar and just working on this script, the sitcom pilot. And so it's probably 10 o'clock at night. And the thing to know about Moscow, I'm sure it's like this now, it was like this for forever, is the Soviet Union, when it collapsed, if you think about what it was, it's the world's largest corporation. These mill towns in America? That
Right.
just, the mill closed.
Yeah.
Everybody's pension
Arkansas
was
got
gone.
ruined by that. We had family there.
My hometown, right?
Yeah.
It's all these people had a pension. That was their whole life. Many of them lived in the houses
Right.
that the mill owned still.
Yeah.
Cannon Mills in Kannapolis, back around my home stomping grounds. So now imagine if that happened, and the employees were 1/6 of the world's landmass, over 100 million people, who had worked their entire life for the Soviet government, on the basis they would get a pension, that they would have their housing provided for them, right? So it was, imagine if that just went bankrupt overnight. And that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so the
Not
question
good.
becomes, how do you privatize, right? And of course, we're there. Hey, we'll show you guys how to do it. It's Jeffrey Sachs, a guy who's very famous, who doesn't really like this part of his story, because he went in there and he's like, here's how we'll privatize. We'll give the employees shares of ownership in their factories. And then we will auction off all of the power grid, all of these major utilities, we'll auction them off to the highest bidder, but we'll only let Russians buy it. And I can appreciate the thought in that, because if you know anything about say for example, Western Africa or any country that suddenly opens up to privatization, but there's a colonial presence there, its outsiders occupy all of the most important resources.
Right.
Yeah.
And you talk about a country becoming democratized. It becomes a political thing, right? You have political democracy, but you have no economic democracy because all the resources are owned by people outside of the country.
Right.
So
All
you
owned by
oscillate.
France.
Yeah. No, you oscillate between two things, which is one, a regime that is absolutely obedient to the foreign power that owns everything, and the people get restless, and there's a revolution, and those people go, well, the only way we're going to have anything is to nationalize, right? Basically cancel all the foreign ownership.
Yeah.
And when you do that, then the foreign powers go, that sounds like communism, and then you overthrow. It's basically these vicious cycles, right?
Yeah.
So I get the thought.
Tale as old as time.
Yeah, no, it is. It's in mid 19th century, but anyway, so what happened in Russia was they auctioned it off. So who has money in 1992 in Russia?
America.
No, so America, yeah, we do,
Because
but we can't. So
that was Clinton. I mean, that was we were booming then, right? I
Yes,
mean, that
and
America, that was probably arguably one of the strongest times, not World War II, Industrial Revolution. We were thriving early 90s.
Yeah, we were thriving in the early 90s. The internet was basically put online for everybody.
True.
Right? I mean, People give Clinton credit for it. Also, I will remind you guys that for a lot of Clinton's presidency, he had a Republican House of Representatives, and Reagan's entire presidency, he had a Democratic House of Representatives.
Yeah,
Quit
that's
saying
right.
presidents do everything. Anyway, back to this. So the only people with money, so it has to be sold to Russians.
Right.
What groups of Russians have money?
The mafia.
Yes,
The mafia and oligarchs.
yes, the mafia and party elites who have corruptly amassed wealth. So overnight,
Monopolies, right? Like that's a big thing there.
oh yeah, so,
Like
and the big thing is this. So you have these people who are both insiders in determining the auctions and purchasers of
Oh,
the
shit.
assets. So almost the entire Soviet state gets sold out overnight on pennies on the dollar to all of these people who are already the most corrupt people there. And overnight, that's why Moscow has one of the most the largest
Holy
number of billionaires
shit.
in the world.
so they're giving you AIDS and selling you the cure.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah. So that's why you hate this massive disparity. So the result of this is a city where, I mean, when I was there, the Soviet Union collapses in '91. The one thing that happens is everyone is given their apartments, right? Wherever you lived was yours.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that and then your pension amounts to like $40 a month sometimes. Like it's nothing.
Well, they say communist, but that's like a lot of socialist stuff, right? I mean, that's
Well, we can get into that. That's another thing. But
We'll get to
like,
that when we start at the beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but they basically understood like these people. Many of them were working at factories, and by the way, the people who got the shares, they were like, "We'll give shares of stock in the factory." As soon as Russia opened up, the factory was 30 years behind,
Oh, fuck.
and the people had no concept of what this ownership was. So the oligarchs go around and they go, "Hey, are you starving because your factory can't work? I'll give you 30 cents or whatever for that share of stock." And like, okay, and they just amass it and buy up what the people were given. Because
Yeah.
you got to remember, people don't know what that means in a society where they've never experienced ownership like that. So anyway, these oligarchs, they run the city. If they show up somewhere, it's like, so I'm sitting in this bar. I'm bringing this back around. And I sit down, I open up my laptop, and I start working on the script by myself, right? And I order a beer, and I'm sitting there. This place doesn't have any liquor, right? So I'm sitting there, and I look outside, and I see like, I don't know, like a couple $100,000, and they're these mafia cars, you know them.
Yeah.
They're blacked out, they're bulletproof,
Yeah.
like they are
murdered out, as they say.
Yeah, they so that when you pull up, you know who it is. Yeah. This car pulls up. I'm talking narrow road. Pulls up on the sidewalk. Just left the car in the middle of everything, and him and his entourage get out and come in this bar.
Mm-mm.
And I'm like, because when they walk in, everybody's going to be like, we got to do whatever they say. So they come in and they're rowdy. The guy walks over to the bar and he orders vodka. And in this place that's like very clear, like we can't have vodka. The dude pulls out a bottle of vodka from under. He's like clearly prepared.
Yeah.
You don't
For
want-
this guy,
yeah,
probably.
for these type of people that just show up because you can't. So he's serving it, and they're all at the bar. And so like I'm sitting at a booth, kind of like I'm facing kind of away from the bar, right? But I'm beside the bar. And these guys are they're just talking loud and everything, and they make note of me, right? They kind of at the bar, they kind of turn to me, right? And it's kind of like, I mean, I can't remember what he said, but it's kind of like, this guy knows what I'm saying, right? And I just go, ha, yeah, man. But I said it in Russian, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Da, конечно." And he's like, haha, and he just stops. And he turns back to me and looks, and he's like, "You've got an accent." And I was like, it's like you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But I was like, "Конечно, у меня акцент, я американец." Like, of course I've got an accent. I'm an American,
Yeah.
right? And he's like, "Oh," he looks at me and he goes, And I can't remember if he snapped. He made some kind of motion, and his entire entourage stopped what they were doing. And I'm in a booth up against the wall, and I'm talking, two of his guys pin me up against the wall. 3 of his guys sit across from the booth.
Fuck that.
I think he's across the booth from me. And then they pull chairs up and surround the booth. The entire entourage just stopped. Boom. And I'm like,
Surrounded.
and he brings the vodka over, right? And at this point, like, I just got a beer, right? And I'm like, what? I'm like, what's going to happen, right? Because, like, anything can happen. They're just like,
Break that shit and
So I'm sitting there and I'm like trying to be cool with him. And he looks at me and goes, He's like, "You're an American?" Now, what you've got to get is that, like, most Russians can't wrap their head around why an American would learn Russian.
Mm-hmm.
right?
I guess I could see that.
Or they think you're in the CIA.
The better your Russian gets, the more people ask you questions
Oh shit!
about that.
Mm-hmm.
So this was.
Is it that rare there?
It's
Where an American is there hanging out?
It's a thing to where, like, I listen to a lot of prison podcasts. Just to listen to this, though. And, like, if you, like, are a white guy and try to do a deal with a cartel and you speak really good Spanish, they think you're a Fed. To where it's like, why do you know so much? Why are you were too good at this, to where it's like you must be work for the CIA or something.
Okay.
right. So they sit down across from me and they're like, the guy's like, you're an American, right? And I can't even. The assortment of people that are sitting around me is like they were cast.
Oh shit!
Right. There's a couple like the big dudes,
Right.
right? And then there's like the one guy who's like,
The
he
little-
speaks English and he's like, my boss is crazy, man. Like, I can't, I try to tell him, man, but I can't. And he's speaking to me in English, which
What
nobody
the
else at the table
fuck?
understands. He's like, I'm his lawyer, man. Like, I was like, oh my God.
This is crazy.
He's like, and he's just like, you can't tell this guy. And I was like, fuck. And he goes, so you're an American, yeah? And I go, yeah. And he goes,
what's he at in
what
Russian?
kind of an American is sitting alone at a bar, can speak perfect Russian, which is not true. He said, and is sitting here quietly observing and writing things down. And I was like, I'm a grad student and I'm working on a comedy sitcom. You know? I think I probably even said like Счастливы вместе, which is Счастливы вместе is the Russian version of Married with Children.
I was gonna ask if they even knew what sitcoms were.
Oh yeah, there's sitcoms. They had, like,
Wow.
it was like a big thing, right? Like they know about it. And there's Счастливы вместе, which is literally just a translation of Married with Children. The only difference in the set is where you walk in has like a clearly Russian house door,
Yeah.
right? And then you walk over from the foyer and you're just in the Bundy household from the Fox. And this show was like currently in production at the time I was there in
my God.
2010, right? So I'm like, yeah, like that. And he goes, no, you're a spy.
Oh Jesus!
And I'm just like, I am not a spy. And he goes, why would you do this? Why would you be sitting here doing this? And I look at him and I go, and like, dude, Moscow destroys your clothes, right? It just wears them out, right? The cold, the heat, and everything. You're walking all the time. And this was like toward the end of when I was there. And dude, everything is expensive in Moscow. I was like on a Fulbright grant that gave me $23,000 a year for 1 year to live in one of the world's most expensive cities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just wearing these tattered clothes, and I was like, hey, if I was a spy, would I be wearing better clothes than this? And he goes, that sounds like something a spy would say.
Sounds
And
like my girlfriend.
I could not. I was like, that's actually a really good point. That was way more clever than I expected to come out of this guy. And then his friend's like, hey, he's crazy, man. And I'm like, okay. I was like, I'm not. And he goes, you're a spy and you're going to admit you're a spy. He said, and you're going to drink until you admit you're a spy. And keep in mind, I can't get out of this booth. And this guy snaps his finger again, I can't remember what he did, but he had this gesture he would do. And the bartender, who was cool, like I talked to this guy a bunch of times, was like, it was like he was like Manchurian candidated, right? Like he was just like, okay, like he wasn't on my side at all. I was like, I don't know this guy.
He's clearly seen these guys fuck somebody up before.
Oh, dude. And he just sets this thing on the table and he's like, drink. And he pours shots. And there's two things that he did not account for. And I was very lucky for this. Number one, I'd been living in Moscow, like I said, for like basically had been like where I lived for almost 2 years at this point. I had been through long nights of drinking like this, and I had only begun to drink a beer, and these guys were soused when they got there. The second thing he could not have known is that I'm a Sawyer, and I am from a long stock of fucking drinkers. And all that Russia had done was brought that latent performance in my bloodstream up to peak, I'm talking fucking Tiger Woods 20 years ago level of being able to drink like without stopping. And so when he said it, I was like, this is my only chance. Like, you have asked pistols or swords and you picked mine. And so, we just started drinking. And the whole time the guy is like, and I don't know how much vodka we drank, but it was a lot of vodka. And the thing about drinking is it will dim you unless you think you might die.
Mm-hmm.
And already like my base level of skill set was like on peak, and I drank till these guys were so drunk that he told a couple of them they could leave, and they left. And then at some point he was like stammered. They were all stammered. I now didn't have like two people sitting to the right of me. One guy gets up. The lawyer turns around. They stammer that way. And I grabbed my shit and I ran out of there. I took the fuck off.
Dude.
And if there was ever a performance, like, it's like, I mean, it must have been like getting pulled over, blowing a .4,
Yeah.
and then walking the line and touching your nose. Like, my feet shouldn't have worked like that, but I got the hell out of there, man. And I think that's probably the reason that I'm alive to this day.
Did you puke?
No, I didn't.
Not even after the running?
Look, I'm not proud of how much I could drink when I lived in Russia. I am not like.
And the adrenaline, I assume, too.
Oh yeah, and it was nuts, and it was just you're just like, this is what happens here.
In hindsight, do you think that, like, I mean, one, just a crazy person who knows what he can do, or two, he can do whatever he wants and he's having fun messing with you like somebody would mess with their little brother. And it's like, oh, this is going to be fun to fuck with this American guy and terrify him.
Look, I don't know. Like, the thing was this. I don't know if he would have killed me, right? But the far more terrifying thing was that he then liked me and decided that I was now in his entourage.
Yeah.
Because, like, killing me, at
That
least
would be
that's a
terrible.
one-time thing.
That's
right?
true.
Because then you're the bartender. You're going to have to fucking do whatever he says when he snaps.
Yeah.
Or I'm the guy who, like, when we surround somebody else, I'm like, I'm a hostage here. Can you get me out, please, God? I can't. Look, I'm smiling. I don't know what. And now I'm not doing any work, and I'm on a Fulbright grant through the U.S. Department of State spending taxpayer dollars on being a crony to a Russian oligarch.
That would be fun.
It would. Like, look, if they go, all right, it's a 1 month thing, right, and the contract's up, you can walk away. That might be fun for observation, but I don't think that ends. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I could even be like, I've only got a 1 year visa, and he's like, nope, you live here now, you're a citizen. You know what I'm saying? Like, people with that money. So I did not want to have a long-term relationship with this guy, and fortunately I never saw him again.
Did you go back to that bar?
Yes.
Damn, I would not have. You're a ballsy guy.
That's a good question, because, like, what is, I mean, I'm assuming same bartender, same, like, that's a risk, right?
Yeah, but, like, look, I got that the bartender had to do what he had to do, right? I mean, the guys were cool. Like, they were, like, kind of, like, I was, like, 32, 33 at this point. What was I? Yeah, and the guys were kind of my age, and they were starting a small business in Russia, and they were creating a really cool place. And obviously, I didn't care if I lived very long. But I don't know, man. You could just tell that these guys weren't, like, this wasn't their regular bar.
Yeah.
Like, they go in there, and they just were like, I feel like drinking right now, let's hijack this place, and we can do that wherever we want to.
Mm-hmm.
And you just happened to be the one you were at.
It did. And I was, like, the only other person there. I mean, this place was, like, it wasn't a banging place. It was kind of like an alt joint, which was odd in Moscow.
Like a divey joint?
Yeah, a little bit to it, but it was like it had like a side place where people play chess and people play like music. It was really, honestly, it felt like maybe something like hippies would have gone to, like in the late '60s or something. Kind of like
sounds
just
awesome.
Chill joint. Yeah, it was great when the oligarchs weren't there. But yeah, so that's one of my stories about almost dying in Russia. There was a lot of that.
So how, like, with the mafia, how tied are they to politics and the state? Like, are they their totally own entity, or
No,
are they all
it's
well connected?
It's like integrated. I mean,
Or are they integrated?
Consolidated power so much that it's like, the mafia is able to thrive. Mafia's, all right. So if you want to go for like a social science framework, mafias thrive where states fail.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about what a mafia does, like you go back to the Italian mafia, right?
So cool. I love that shit.
No, but it's like people don't get that, like that the scene where it's like the classic mafia movie scene where the guy's like got a little store in the neighborhood and the mafia guys show up and they're like, you didn't pay your production money.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm sorry, I can't pay it. And he's like, and they just beat the shit out of him and destroy his stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I mean, that might happen. But what you don't get is that in places where those mafias thrive, they're places where the police don't show up.
Mm-hmm.
They're places where if you call the police, they're going to come there. If they come there, their chances are they're going to harass you. Like, organized crime thrives in places where the state fails and it fills the functions of the state.
So there's
Yeah.
actually some positives to it.
Yes, because I mean, think about it. You're like in a poor neighborhood where the cops think of as just everyone there's a hoodlum, right? You're not going to call the cops if somebody comes in and like robs you. So what do? You pay protection money to the mafia, and they say, like, look, if you mess with us, then if you mess with this store, you understand your liability of falling on the wrong side of the mafia. And if you do that, you won't get arrested. We'll break your fucking legs.
Yeah.
And so what mafia does is a lot of times it fulfills that function, right? The reason the mafia was so big in Russia and they had the money was because you're in a situation, or in the Soviet Union, you're in a situation where all these black market goods are flowing, right? And the state's not going to acknowledge it. The state might let it happen for bribes, but they're providing services in a lot of ways, right?
A Silk Road, if you will.
Yeah, and so it's like, mafias aren't necessarily mafias. If you think about like what's the high days of the mafia? When you say every mafia movie you see, when's it set?
70s, 60s.
Well, that's the sad mafia movies where they're like running like trash joints and stuff, like running.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, The Godfather's in the 40s, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, and we go back to the 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
I was just thinking like Casino, Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was their peak of power, but
Yeah,
Right.
well, what is
right before they
the
fell.
reason that those mafias got so powerful and they roll into Vegas in the 40s is that the reason they got all that power was because alcohol was made illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, Prohibition, so they can make
Yeah.
all their money off running liquor.
Right, so they don't just run liquor. They do run liquor, but they do. Look, if you wanted to fucking sell meth, right?
Mhm.
And
We do.
okay, so for you guys listening, let me give you a little tip here. The problem with selling meth is, like, if you want to get a big shipment of meth, you got to give money to somebody and trust that they will go get the meth,
Right.
right? But if they take off with the money, you can't call the police on them,
True.
Yeah.
right?
They
You've gotta
stole
go
my
get 'em.
meth money, yeah.
So in modern states, in modern societies like the ones we live in here, when you can always say, if I give you the money, we sign a contract. If you violate the contract, I go to the government comes down and cracks down and penalizes you. I don't have to do that, right?
Right.
And we all recognize in a modern society that the state has the right to put you in prison, right? Or to otherwise take away from you, right?
Right.
We've ceded that power to the state.
States' rights.
But the problem is, good Lord. Okay. Anyway, so what ends up happening with with mafias is, with illegal drugs is, okay, if I give you a proper burgeoning drug trade can't happen if everyone gives money and people run off.
True.
You need to be afraid that if you run off, something bad will happen to you. So what does the mafia do? They come in and they fill that role.
Mm-hmm.
If
They're
you-
the muscle.
Yeah, they're the muscle. And the reason that people were, you pay them money to protect your store, dude, you every month pay money to protect the roads too. It's called taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if people refuse to pay the taxes, you can't provide the service there. And if the service is not there, if there were no police that would come and you call, all shit would break loose. And so mafias do that in places. So back to
Yeah.
Russia.
They're one and the same.
The mafia thrived when the state was weak. But once the state got more powerful, what ends up happening is the state fills in the gaps. And now the mafia doesn't have, I mean, they're still there, right? And the vestiges of them are still there. But they don't have the same authority as before because the state has usurped that power now.
Yeah.
And there are fewer power vacuums for the mafia to fill.
Yeah, so let's go on that. I mean, we're so deep in this that I think let's just start it like but and we're already talking about this, that like let's start at the fall of the Soviet Union, kind of how that happens, and then the power vacuum, and then kind of how Putin got into power after that.
Okay, so the Soviet Union collapses in 91, December 25th, 1991. And what ends up happening is the people of the Soviet Union vote to dissolve it, right? And it already had like the Baltic states kind of on the verge of it. But the Soviet Union today is 15 different countries.
Yeah.
Right? So you got Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, obviously Ukraine, Moldova, Belarus. I don't need to list them all, but I could.
And
Georgia,
then,
Azerbaijan.
and like
Armenia.
Asian countries, like Kazakhstan. was part of it.
Kazakhstan,
Yeah,
Uzbekistan,
that's it,
Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and did I say
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan, yeah.
Yeah.
So the 5 Central Asian republics. And that's important because all these idiots who say Putin wants to bring back the Soviet Union, just ask them, do you think he wants Tashkent back? And if they go, huh? You go, okay, obviously he doesn't want the Soviet Union back. He's not trying to take Uzbekistan, right? Like he's not going after Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
true.
What he wants to do is recreate the Russian Empire. That's a very different thing because that's about ethnicity. It's not about like the
So
vestiges.
that's race, right?
That was a problem in the Bolshevik Revolution. One thing like Stalin and Trotsky were trying to figure out is how are we going to control, because it was like hundreds of different ethnicities, and they had different religions and values and things like that.
It's massive. I mean, you've got the the Caucasus region, right, where you've got Azeris, right, Azerbaijan. You have who are ethnically consider themselves to be Turks, very close to like Turkey, which is right on the border, which becomes there's a security issue there. You've got like Kyrgyzstan. You've got like Uyghurs that are like crossing the border into China. You've got It's I didn't say it with a hard. Anyway, and you've got Koreans,
with a couple
you got Chinese, like, dude, Russia had just taken like part of northern China, like in the 1860s during the Opium War. So you're just like dealing with all this, and so it is a big question they have to answer early on, which is like, how do we attain loyalty? And the conclusion they reach is like, we'll encourage these ethnic identities, but in order to let them thrive so that then we can move them past that stage of development, past the nationalist stage, into the true communist class evolution of
and abolish religion, right? Like that was a big thing for them, was to help them not have an identity.
Yeah, but so it was weird because they encouraged the national identities, right? But here's the funny thing. All right, nobody, like today people are like, I'm Kazakh, I'm Uzbek, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, the Soviet Union basically created those identities.
Yeah.
Hoisted them upon those people, and 3 generations later, they believe that they've gone back forever. It's the same stupid shit about race. It's like, it's not real.
Yeah.
Somebody made up a story, stuck it over it, and then you believed it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it all falls apart and everything in the 1990s. And, in spite of like our promises, like, I mean, this is honestly a thing. Like, I've spoken to Ronald Reagan's ambassador to the Soviet Union, who then served under Bush.
Shit.
Oh, wow.
Jack Matlock. He came to MTSU and did a live show with us.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right, Road to Now.
Shout out Road to Now.
Road to Now, my podcast.
Yes,
history podcast,
great podcast.
where I let other people talk.
Yes.
But he said like Reagan honestly was trying. Like if you look at like how Reagan, everybody thinks Reagan.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down there.
The president doesn't set tax rates, and I realize it's a problem now because you all believe it. I'm looking at the camera right now. You all believe it. So when the president says they can do anything, you just go, okay, he's the top guy. It's not how it works. But the president does take charge in diplomacy
until this last year.
No, don't even get me started on that. Tariffs are a tax. Taxes allocated clearly to Congress under Article 1. Anyway,
Article 1, Section B, 28.2.
Yeah, it's okay. Anyway,
Another up.
So
Yeah.
everything falls apart. Bush doesn't care. Like as soon as Bush becomes president, he's
Bush
like,
Senior.
He's like, they lost. And
Skull
so
and
the
bones,
Soviet
baby.
Union basically dissolves. Russia's an independent state. Like it's very hard. And when Boris Yeltsin comes to power, he was drunk. There's tons of corruption. The mafia's running stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then
That's fun time.
and then in New Year's like 2000, he just announces this guy you've never heard of, probably named Vladimir Putin's like, I'm nominating him to like take over after me.
Yeah, so this was something I wanted to ask about is, because I listened to a podcast about him today, and his rise to power was very mysterious, as in he moved up, and people didn't really understand how he's moving up so quickly.
A ghost.
And he was like kind of a mid-level KGB guy, and then he gets all these positions. He's setting apartments on fire, and somehow that gets...
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
It may be true. But Archgetty.
There were bombings right when he became president, right?
Oh yeah, the Chechen bombing.
Yeah. But didn't they blame the Chechens, and it was them?
Of course.
Okay.
Because
So quick rundown on that.
Putin understands power, and he understands something that
False flag.
when things are bad for you, you blame foreigners,
Mm-hmm.
and he creates and stokes this anger between them.
Yeah.
In Russia, it's very much more real, and this is the problem with Americans. Americans can't wrap their head around Russia. Vladimir Putin is a monster, but Vladimir Putin has basically always just said what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
He's always said what he wants. That's the thing about having that much power. You can say what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then Americans go, duh, what does he really want?
Yeah.
And it's like, he said what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
He's always said what he wants. That's not been trouble with him. So he comes to power, and just brutal, just killing journalists, right? Shutting down private television networks. All television networks are owned by the state as of like 2001, I think.
Sounds
it
like
was.
propaganda.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's independent radio stations.
Well, it
but
never
you gotta-
happened here.
Oh, there's independent radio stations there?
Yeah, but they're you obviously got to watch your back now.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Those dudes
Always.
from the bar.
I mean,
yeah.
look, that may have changed, but there were when I was there. But the television stations were all owned by the state, and so you get a very clear party line on TV,
Mhm.
right? And so while he's he comes to office, and like I said, he actually uses the power of the state to crack down on things in a way that's like brutal, but also does create the possibility of a modern, like a real middle class popping up, like
Yeah.
people who like work jobs and like are doing better. And that he's very much a victim of that too, because then middle class people want middle class things, and if you are an iron fist ruler, you don't want the people to do things like protest you, which is what a middle class thinks it has the power to do.
Yeah.
True.
So he's spent the last few years kind of wrapping that back around and being like, no. And so, here we are with Putin back, and he'll never leave office. And the thing that I try to convey to people is, number one, Putin has always said what he wants. It's not hard to understand. Like, it takes gymnastics to flip backwards and figure out why he can't. It's just we as Americans, we don't know their history. So when Russians get afraid of foreigners, right, we're like, well, we're afraid of foreigners too. Yeah, were you invaded? Like, is your entire historical narrative, the Mongols came, and then the Germans came, and the Germans came again, and then
Napoleon.
Yes, your entire the key points, right? We were like, we declared independence, and then we whipped them. Like, that's our narrative.
Yeah.
Because no one's ever really invaded us. Russia's constantly
Pearl
invaded.
Harbor. Those motherfuckers tried, gave it their best shot.
Yeah, well,
Hell.
We let that happen.
Yeah, I was about to say that was
But
clearly.
you keep one thing is
false flag.
you keep what? So what is it that Putin wants? You keep saying he says what he wants.
Okay.
What's like his main thing
So
that he wants?
Putin had a very real question, which was, okay, so the Soviet Union, there's NATO, right? And NATO was created as a defensive alliance against the expansion of communism with its bullseye set on Moscow.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. The Soviet Union went away. And yet NATO's not only still here, it's strange it continues to expand. And it seems to just be moving closer and closer to Russia. And Russia's not invited to join. So what is NATO doing, right?
They're tempting them. They've been poking and prodding, right?
They are worried because Russia still has this nuclear arsenal, right? And, there's all kinds of snubs, like, George W. Bush, like after the Iraq War happens, right? The 9/11 happens, and we're worried about where are we going to get oil. Russia's, one of the largest oil producing countries in the world. And Putin's like, hey, we'll make sure that you're taken care of. Just all I want is to, guarantee that you won't continue to expand NATO. And Bush goes, absolutely. And Putin's like, can we sign something? And Bush is like, let's just do a handshake. And then gets the oil, and then immediately begins pushing for NATO to expand, right?
Nice.
Yeah.
So if you go back to if you were to talk to me in 2019, I would be like, what is NATO for? Like, what is it doing? Right?
Yeah.
I was like,
it's
look,
pointless.
You're provoking Putin with it. It has no purpose. And the amazing thing was, the number one critic of NATO's expansion, who's Vladimir Putin, managed just a couple of years ago to answer the question, why does NATO exist, by himself becoming a global pariah, threatening to annex other countries. And now for the first time I go, well, that's why it exists. You've created the circumstance under which more countries are joining, right?
Yeah.
You've self-fulfilled the prophecy.
Kind of putting his back against the wall is kind of what they were doing, right?
And he said before, him and other Rush people had said, like, this is our red line, right? That if it expands to our border, we will invade Ukraine. I don't know how explicitly they said it.
There's that, and there's going back to like the the Yellow Revolution, the Orange Revolution in Ukraine, like the question of like the West versus East, right? And Russia sometimes offering Ukraine better deals than the West was offering them, and then the West like clearly using its so it's back and forth, right? But the people of Ukraine are the people of Ukraine; they get to decide. Something snapped in Putin. Every American thought that Putin was just a monster who just was chaotic and would just attack folks. In 2022, as we're like watching all this stuff go down, me and my wife are watching all these Americans be like, they're going to go for Kyiv. They're going to go for Kyiv. And we were like, no, they're not. Like, they're like, well, they did it in Georgia. You know what they did in Georgia? They rolled into the northern areas, right? They rolled into like these ethnic enclaves.
Is this Red Army?
Northern Georgia. No, this is like 2008.
Oh shit!
Right. So this is the independent nation of Georgia, which was a former Soviet state, right? And they're having issues with the government and Tbilisi. So they roll in to these ethnic areas where they use this as justification. These folks are saying we're being suppressed by the Georgian government. Russia comes in as their protector, threatens Tbilisi, but once they've seized these areas, they very slowly start moving toward Tbilisi because Putin doesn't want to just take over Tbilisi. What Putin wants is Georgia not to join NATO, and he has other specific interests. And he knows that what will happen is that because Russia plays a vital role in supplying energy to Western Europe, that by slowly moving towards Tbilisi going, we could upend the entire global order, that France and Germany, one of them will get involved and negotiate a treaty, and he will get what he wants.
Right.
Yeah.
And that worked.
Mm-hmm.
And so why do you go for Kyiv? It's like,
So
this doesn't make any
strategic.
sense. It was incredibly
He's very
strategic,
calculated.
right? Now, the West goes, he's a monster. He was going to take over Tbilisi at the French chat instead. No, he got what he wanted. It worked exactly. He was a strategist, right? And so we're just like, he's not going to invade Kyiv. And then he does. And I'm talking for the entire time I've been studying Russia, Americans are just they're terrible analysts of it. They're like, what does he really want? And when it happened, me and my wife were both like, oh my God. Every American analyst that we heard on the TV was like, we told you it was going to happen. We were right. And here's what every real Russia actual expert, not the ones on TV, but the ones who study it knew, was that, yes, you were right. And that means this is way worse than you think it is.
That's not good.
Not good at all.
Why is it way worse than they think it is?
Because you are not playing with a rational actor anymore.
Oh, gotcha.
You are not playing with a guy who is looking to have someone come in and negotiate a treaty. You are not looking one with strategic aims. Going for Kyiv is fucking bonkers.
Mm-hmm.
Because ostensibly what he wanted was these western provinces of Ukraine, right? Which are Russian ethnicities, which, to be fair, had their grievances, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had real grievances, right? Ukraine had passed a law that made it illegal to speak in the government in anything but Ukraine.
Yeah.
That's insane whenever you have a country of Russian speakers, like a large percentage of Russian speakers.
Yeah.
My wife was working in an archive in Kyiv, and speaking to the archivist spoke Russian, but legally wasn't able to speak Russian back to her.
Oh
So my wife would speak to her in Russian, and like Ukrainians, like fairly similar, right? And then the archivist would answer the question various ways in Ukrainian until she could piece it together with the Russian that she knew, right? That's bonkers.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got your grievances. None of this, by the way, is a justification for why this invasion happened.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
When he went for Kyiv, it was like, it's off. And I started reading his speeches. It's a joke that like the first Russian you can understand is Vladimir Putin because he speaks so clearly and like very easy to understand. He doesn't like get into it. Like he's very like matter of factly, and he uses words that you can get. So I just started reading his speeches, and I realized, because I'm like, what happened? And one of the things I noticed is that when he's talking about him in Russian, he's talking about Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. And in Russian, it's, Russia is Russia, Belarusia is Belarus, right? And Ukraine is Ukraine, right? But he's calling them Malorussia. Malorussia means like little Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a phrase they used in the Russian Empire.
So we're talking pre-Russian Revolution. Like
Yes.
he wants like old glory.
He's talking like Nicholas II,
Mm-hmm.
the Tsar. And it's something broke in him. And now what he wants, and he's trying to force Ukraine into this bloodline alliance. He believes that those Ukrainians would naturally want to be in an alliance with Russia because they are bound by blood, which means that if anybody has chosen to go with the West instead of going with Russia, that they must be corrupted or be Nazis. When they're like, he's, the Zelensky is a Nazi.
There are a lot of
Yeah,
Nazis.
the Azov battalion. That's like
That's great, but I'm just guessing that Volodymyr Zelensky, a Jewish guy, is not a Nazi.
no. I'm not saying he is.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're like, of course, there's Nazis here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Drive down the roads, huh?
I know. So would you be like, there's some Nazis in Shelbyville, like,
Of course,
overthrow
right.
the government of the United States?
Right.
But the point is
Good reason.
that yeah. So when you go in there, and this is the thing, it's like, just listen to what he's saying. And then you read these speeches. He had this prepared speech when he thought they were going to collapse immediately. He really believed they were going to collapse immediately because he believed that the people of Ukraine would naturally want to be a part of Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And when they didn't, everyone was going, well, why isn't he stopping? Right? Why isn't he like trying to negotiate out of this? Why is he stopping? It's like, dude, he really believes, and something has snapped. This isn't the way he used to think. He really believes that they are naturally bound together, and that true Ukrainians would want to be a part of this alliance with Belkaya Russia, Belarusia, and Malorussia. And this is why they're like, why are these Russian brigades going in and just murdering people, right? Didn't they figure out it's not Nazis? Didn't they figure out that these people actually want to be with the West? I mean, that's the way we would look at it. But if you look at it from Putin's perspective, and he says the true Ukrainians would want to be with us. Well, when you go to a town and they don't welcome you, guess what? You found even more Nazis.
Mm-hmm. You're not true Ukrainians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's even worse than you thought.
Yeah.
And this explains the insanity of, and I wrote this piece in the Washington Post that was like, came out in 2022. And I didn't say this explicitly. I couched it in another story about Russia's economy. And the thing, it was like the number 2 trending story on Google News the day it was published. And it was like the most read piece on the Washington Post that weekend, which was like insane.
Nice.
But nobody got the point, which was this is worse than you thought. And that's where we are now. And I still think if you would just look at Russia and say, what did Putin say? You would actually have an answer to your question, what does he want?
Yeah.
So that's that, man. That's what
well, real quick, because, I mean, you said the word provoked. Scott Horton wrote this book called Provoked about how we pushed him to it. Like, do you think that if we hadn't kept expanding NATO that he would have left it alone, or something his old age, he broke, and he's like, no, I have to bring the Russian Empire back?
I think he had his grievances. I don't think he's the same person he was back then. Like, I think there's a very real reason if you're in a country and you, like, if the Warsaw Pact, which was like the Soviet version of NATO, had stuck around and tried to, it was like rally in Mexico to get in, we'd have some shit to say about it, right?
Yeah.
But I'm saying that, like, that's the result of a rational calculation. That now Putin is in a different mindset, right? And yes, NATO provokes people, right? But like that's not an excuse to go take over a sovereign nation.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, he won't win. He can't win.
Yeah.
It's like during the American Revolution, right? You can capture people, but how do you capture an idea?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How do you capture? You can capture the leader. You could have caught Washington if he wasn't so good at running away. But how do you kill? You can kill a leader, but how do you kill an idea?
Yeah.
You will never convince the people of Ukraine that they are somehow bound in this bloodline because they've chosen to free themselves in the spirit of the United States, which is we're not bound by who our parents were. We're not bound by who our grandparents were. We're going to get to decide who we are. And that's why this conflict, you can't win if you're if you take over the whole country. You won't kill that spirit because once people see that, by and large, they don't go back.
Do you see it ending soon?
No, I don't see it any soon because you've got the this question, which is what's going to happen, like in the Western provinces, right? And those are majority Russian, and it's a problem because, war creates real resentments, and there's going to be those on the ground. And I think that I don't know. I mean, who knows? I didn't see it coming before. What do I know? I can't predict the future,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. Who knows? I mean, maybe it seems like Trump has figured out that you can't trust Vladimir Putin. He came out like a couple weeks ago. Most people they yelled at Zelensky for even suggesting that in the Oval Office. But it seems like he knows. And now that Putin's been reaching out to Iran, being like, "You guys need some nukes,"
Oh, yeah.
that could make things more tense there, where maybe we're more willing to back Ukraine again. But I don't know, man. It's hard. I'm sorry this wasn't very funny. I hope that you guys.
No,
No,
we
this
made
is
it funny.
great. No, this is great, dude. Thank you so much for coming on. Is there
Yeah,
anything you
thank
want to
you.
plug or say before?
Yeah, Road to Now podcast. I'm glad. I've done some comedy podcasts before, and at the end, I'm like, come listen to my show where I talk about serious things that not at all sound like this. But hey, if you're watching this long, you'll like the Road to Now.
Yeah.
We talk about serious things.
Yeah,
And Perfect
shout out to-
Timing,
yeah.
which
Yes,
this
shout out.
is the part where I go, I am a comic. Perfect Timing here in Nashville at the Lab at Zany's. Check it out. Next show is August 14th, but we're monthly at PT Game Show. At PT Game Show on Instagram. And when you follow us, send me a DM and say, I heard you on that show. And I will ignore it because it will go into
Yes.
that box.
And you will
right
get
on.
0 of those.
Yep. Not one.
Not one?
Now you might get one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, show them not
Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
Make it a
show
million.
them. Show them, Aiden.
We love you. We'll see you next week.
Peace.
Thank you. Goodbye.